said to say hello.
How is she?
Good. Still keeping her head down. Still keeping her head down.
Did you hear that April was on the final cut for special judge?
I heard she's got another hearing tomorrow or an interview or something.
I think.
Yeah.
It goes well. She really wants it.
Yeah. Well,
And I think she'll be good at it.
I think she would be too. I'm happy for her. Oh, Mr. Clemmer's here. We can start. I'd like to call the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Bethany meeting to order for April 19th, 2018, approximately 7 p.m. Our first order of business will be the invocation. Commissioner Peck, please.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this time, this panel, and we just ask that you continue to be with us and provide the best channels for the city, and we just remember the memorial today and keep all those in prayer. In your name, pray. Amen.
Thank you. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda this evening is approval of minutes for the April 5th, 2018 meeting. Are there any comments, corrections, revisions? Is there any need for discussion? Is there a motion?
I make a motion we approve these minutes.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Please vote. Remind me to turn that back on if we don't have anyone in the audience this evening, so I won't, or I'll dispense with the explanation. However, this is a public hearing, and our sole item for business this evening is PC 18-07, which is to consider a request to install cellular phone antennas and associated equipment at the water tower on Northwest 36th Street. Ms. McClellan?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So this will be a short presentation. This is a request to install communication antennas at 7270 Northwest 36th Street. The request is from CRB AT&T. They are proposing the following additions. They are proposing to add 6 remote radios and 1 demarcation box, and then they want to remove 6 antenna and 6 remote radios also. Our city engineer has reviewed his portion of this and has no concerns at the time. Mr. Davis, I believe, has reviewed the lease and has no concerns either, but I will let him speak to that after I'm done. Our building inspector does not have any concerns either, so all of our staff has reviewed the engineer's report and the application. Everybody is fine with it. We are bringing this to you because our code of ordinance requires that any communication antennas exceeding 35 feet in height have to be permitted, and the application must be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission and approved by the City Council. And that is it. And here's the location. If y'all are not aware, there's the location. There's an aerial view. They already have antennas here. I believe The lease was originally signed in 1995, and it was most recently amended in January of 2016.
Okay, are there any questions?
Does this impact the rate of rent on these antennas?
David?
Yes, I don't have the exact amount right in front of me, but it's, I believe it's about $400 a month, as I recall.
I do have the lease here. The rent shall be increased by $600 per month, it says here, under rent. Does that sound right, David?
Is that the last one? Let me look and see.
That's a new lease from January.
No, this was the prior one. This was in 95. My recollection is that this is about $400 a month.
In
You
addition,
have all the prior leases here is what you have.
this is an additional amount, David?
Yes. Doesn't appear that new lease is in this packet, but it is here at the city, and I have reviewed it. It will go to the city council at their next meeting. The lease will.
Are there any other questions?
In regards to the grounding, has the city inspector inspected grounding for these antennas?
I cannot speak directly to if he has on the grounding. I do know that he has given us his approval of this project.
Okay. So I have a little bit of background in this, and while you typically go only by NEC code, which is electrical energy. When you run into lightning energy, that's not really coded, but there's recommendations.
Right.
Typically, when you update these antennas, they're usually using the existing or old grounding, and typically they're only one or two legs tied off. The new standards recommend that we should have 5-star configuration, multi-legs, so if ever gets hit by lightning, it distributes to more parts of the system in layman's terms.
Right.
And so I'd be curious if there's any way that we could review. This is a big issue countrywide
Okay.
on the antenna systems, that these guys are taking the old ones off, popping the new ones on, and not really looking at the grounding closely. And, and over time and certain circumstances, that leads to some other issues, that fires and some electrical problems. So I just want to make note of that. So
We can definitely, I can find out more information on that for you, depending on what you want to do this evening. So I can definitely talk to Dustin and see if he has done that.
when was the last time when were these originally installed?
They were originally installed in 1995.
Okay, it's probably out of.
On page 5, they show a number 6 AWG green insulated ground cable.
Page 5.
At page 15. Item 2, antenna mount detail.
Is there a ground grid at that tower? So if it is struck by lightning?
I do not know the answer to that.
Yeah, number 6 usually would go over to a lug, and of course that lug is going to be double bolt, should have 2 bolts to a grounding bar or a leg.
And that's what it says, to a ground bar, yeah.
Right, right. So
And you say that's been up?
it would be worth looking at to see if it's properly grounded. It's just something that's starting to kind of peak and
Oh,
raise
that's
its
good.
head.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Well,
So,
it
yeah.
might be worth it just to bring it to Mr. Caton's attention and let him
Okay.
consider it. And if
Yeah.
he's not familiar with the newer method of grounding, then you might be able to send him an email
A
and where he
best
can look.
practice. Okay. Yep. Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
There are several carriers located on that tower. This is just one of many. Sprint's located there. I believe T-Mobile. And that is a considerable source of revenue to the city. Our ordinance requires that unless they can show it's not feasible, they're required to locate on city property. The one that was able to do that are those beautiful antennas on top of Western Oaks Tower.
Is there a motion?
I would make a motion that we recommend this approval of this subject to referring the grounding issue through Mr. Caton,
Yes, sir.
subject to that going on to the city council.
Is there a second? Please vote.
In thinking about it, I believe the revised lease was sent by AT&T to Danielle
Okay,
because I was copied on the email.
okay. I'll get that. And I will get with Mr. Caton tomorrow and make sure that we go over the grounding concerns with him and with my senior building inspector as well. And we'll get that issue ironed out before we take it to city council.
Linda, would you make sure that you locate that lease and make sure it goes on the next city council agenda as well as this item?
And when will this item go to the city council?
It will be,
May 1.
Sorry? May 1st, thank you.
No de Mayo.
Is there anything else we need to discuss?
Yes,
Please.
that beautiful improvement to the park over at Eldon Line where you can actually see the park without a bunch of crummy trees in front of it. So,
I haven't driven by.
But I believe they're going to reinstall some new trees.
yeah,
right?
but that's okay. They'll be little bitty but you never would have thought that thing looked that big
That's
with all those
a large
trees in
piece
the
of
way.
property.
So, I think that's a good thing. Somebody ought to get a pat on the back. I don't know who.
Well, I think, didn't we approve it?
Oh,
That, the new trees coming
So it's
in
been
will
pretty
be part of a grant through the Oklahoma City Community Foundation. And the city will have a requirement of putting in some auxiliary things, park benches, bike racks, dog station, a few things like that.
And I do believe the trees are about, if all goes well, the new trees are about 2 weeks out on receiving those. So we're working with the foundation's tree guy that does all their trees, and he is hunting down what we want, and then they'll come in, and we hope in a couple of weeks start getting those planted.
Are there any items that you feel compelled to update us on, or I can't think of anything?
Or give us a heads up on.
I would suggest that if any of you are out and about St. Mark's over the Methodist Church over the weekend, that you drive to the back of their lot and look at the subject that we had for the request for the auxiliary building. Last Saturday I drove in there and there were 3 larger than typical passenger pickups with trailers behind them and the logo painted on the window. So I think we really need at some point to have a discussion about, are we going to enforce the restrictions against businesses out of residences? Because that's, you know, he's a very straightforward, nice guy, but you know, when you've got 3 good-sized trucks there, and he says it's all family, I've got 2 such neighbors to my property over there at 30th and Wilburn, and they don't add anything to the appearance of the neighborhood. You know, if we're going to tolerate it, let's just get it out of the ordinance book, or let's enforce it one way or the other.
Our home-based ordinance, business ordinance, is so out of date that it's virtually unenforceable. I'm hoping maybe the rewrite of Title 15 will resolve some of
Well, I
that.
have the rough draft, or the first rough draft, first copy of the Title 15 rewrite. I guess that is an update I can give. I have not looked at that particular section, but I will do that tomorrow and see if they've touched it or not, or made any changes. But we do have the first draft of Title 15 rewrite.
Would you make a point to have a line item on our next agenda to discuss that and bring us up to date on it, please?
Yes, sir. I most certainly will.
When is
I
that?
would say the trend is to get away for people to get away from brick and mortar businesses and try to operate out of their house. So it's a issue not just in Bethany, but nationwide, really.
Well, that's why I say if we have the ordinance, let's enforce it. If the ordinance is out of date, let's repeal it. This would be the time when we're looking at,
When we're already
particularly at
working on
Title
this.
15.
Right.
Linda, when is the next scheduled meeting?
I don't know that there's anyone on here that would remember, but a former member of the Planning Commission, Darlene Weigel, passed away this week. She was from Ward 1.
That's the well-decorated corner house over here.
Yes, sir.
Well, our condolences to the family. On a happier note, I'd like to welcome back Commissioner Sayer.
Yes.
We all are.
My mother told me getting old is not for sissies. I do too now.
Well, if there isn't any other discussion, do we have a motion?
I make a motion we adjourn.
Second, please.
Second.
Please vote.
See that, Linda? We got it to the 20-minute mark.
One of the few unanimous votes. Well, thank you, everyone.